Welcome to Beyond Sunday, where we have a cup of coffee, a conversation, and cultivate our relationships with one another in Christ. Beyond Sunday is a podcast ministry of Kindred Church, broadcasting to you from beautiful Orange County, California. And now, here's your host, Tom Grossi.
Well, welcome to this episode of Beyond Sunday. It's a joy that you are joining us again for another episode as we have a cup of coffee and a conversation and cultivate our relationships in Christ. My name is Tom Grossi. I'm the host for Beyond Sunday and minister of music at Kindred Community Church, and it's my joy to be able to introduce our next guest. And when I think of Patty Hamilton, my guest here today, I'm reminded of a Winston Churchill quote. Winston Churchill once says that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And if there's ever a person that truly gives to the life of our church and is constantly giving and pouring herself out, it's Patty Hamilton and the Hamilton family. So it's a joy to have Patty with us today. Let's welcome Patty. Patty, how are you doing?
Hi, good. That was really nice. Thank you. I'll pay you later.
You're welcome. Well, and special props as well to Patty, because Patty works here in the church office. She's the administrator in the church office, so she has to put up with my bald head every day. So anybody who can do that, I at least better give a good quote to introduce you. So, well, Patty, as we've been doing with a lot of our guests, I've been kind of just bouncing around 4 or 5 different questions, just so members of our congregation, members of our worship and music community, and those that might be gathering and listening in from even other churches, family members and friends, to kind of get to know the people that are on our platform and leading us in worship. And, you know, we kind of know them from afar. You and Jim have been here for a long, long time, and so many people know of you. But as our church continues to grow and a lot of new people joining us, this is just sort of a window into that, to give them a sort of a relational sense of like, hey, I know something about that person now that I didn't know. So that's kind of just my first question, is just tell us about your family. I know you're super excited about your grandbaby and all of that. So tell us about your family, obviously your husband and your great children. And obviously we now know what you do for an occupation. So I'll just kind of turn it over there, and then we can kind of get into some music talk.
Well, my husband's name is Jim, and we've been married 37 years now. It's going to be 37 in a week.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, and we have 2 children, Hannah and Jacob. Jacob serves here at Kindred. He's one of the musicians here. He's a drummer. They call him the smiling drummer.
Yeah, he was on our first podcast. He was on our first episode.
Yeah, our daughter, Hannah, she is a teacher. She teaches dance in Washington right now. And so they're a joy. I love my kids. And, of course, my grandbaby.
Yes, yeah, go ahead. You got the camera now. Tell us about your grandbaby.
His name is Zachariah,
yeah.
And he is just the sweetest little guy. He's just our joy.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what the next one's going to be like.
The next one is due
so cute. In August.
So Brittany's due in August with grandbaby number 2.
Yeah.
Their second, of course, as well.
Yeah. And a boy.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's great. And by the time this podcast airs, I think we've been telling people, but as you know, because Della and I and you and Jim, we go out and talk, that we're going to be grandparents as well, which is like crazy. So our oldest daughter, Dana, married Stephen, and we love them both dearly, and they are expecting, and they're due in early November. So
you guys know what it is?
They're having a boy, and they're super excited, super excited,
cool.
and we're thrilled to death on that too. So we're going to be asking for advice, like how are you doing this, because it's a new territory
I have no
for
idea.
us.
I still don't know.
Wow. Well, before we talk music and all that stuff, but I think that what is I've always wanted to know, even maybe from your perspective and you and Jim's perspective, you guys as a marriage and as a family, it's just meant a great deal to Della and I, and a great deal to our church. And when Jacob was on the episode, we were talking about his MS and finding out in high school, really, and how he navigated that in an incredible, gracious way. And I got his perspective, but I thought, kind of made a note in my mind, I want to ask Patty, when that news kind of hit you and Jim, So kind of take us back there for a little bit. How was that for you? Because we have a tremendous love and respect for Jacob and Brittany and the both of you, and especially our indispensable ministry at church is we want all those who have special needs to feel that this is their home, and that Kindred is their home, and they are indispensable to us. They are so valuable and important to us. But it's not just those that may be suffering from an ailment or what may be called a, quote, handicap, but it's their family members as well. And I just am interested from your perspective what that was like, and maybe some counsel that you would give on something like that.
Well, I really didn't know what MS was when Jacob was diagnosed. I did all of my learning, I think, that first week. I could not stop researching. And I kind of had to give that over to the Lord, because that could be something that could be kind of crippling also, because you just see all the horrible things, that it could mean to have a disease, whether it's MS or whatever, whatever it may be. And I didn't want to forget that more than a disease, more than a news or a diagnosis or whatever, beyond that is God, And I remember Jacob saying to me one time, he just kind of held my arm and he said, "Mama, I know that you're not ready for your son to have MS, but I want you to know that your son is ready for it."
Wow.
And this came out of a 17-year-old boy.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that moment, because I saw so much faith in Jacob. And I think that's part of why I dealt with it the way that I did, because I saw Jacob. And maybe I don't know if he could say that about me, like maybe he dealt with that because of how he saw me handling it. Because, as a mom, you want to always protect your children. And but it was really life-changing for us, for our family, because we just learned to live in the moment. We learned to enjoy and embrace the moments that life gives us. As you know, in ministry, you're always going. You're
always
thinking,
the next thing.
You're always ahead. You're always like 3 months ahead of your life, if more,
That's a good way to
if not
put it.
more. You're barely like, oh yeah, this is what's happening right now. What's going to happen later?
Right.
So you're always planning, and the Lord just really taught me personally, and I think the rest of my family too, to just take the moments, and I don't ever want to lose that. And as a worshiper, I can say that the deepest worship moments that I've had in my life are during those moments, because those are the moments that define you as a believer, I think. Those are the moments that you are like Mary, were just like flat on your face, and you're just wiping your tears with your hair off of the feet of Jesus. So I don't want to forget that.
That's great counsel, Patty, and Della and I both love and admire you and Jim, both in the strength and courage it takes. And that's actually what I had shared with Jacob as well, too. I says, boy, I would like to think when I was 16, 17 years old, I would have handled that news the way you handled it, Jacob. I says, I don't know if I would have, but I would have hoped that I would have. And so he's a special young man. So you should be proud of him and your daughter, Hannah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you and Jim came to Kindred. I know that you've been involved in music and worship ministry. You have a wonderful voice. Jim has a wonderful voice. Jim, obviously, you could maybe touch on that a little bit, that Jim recently retired from the school district as a music teacher, so he's got a soft spot in my heart as an educator. So just tell us a little bit of that journey of what kind of brought you here, when that was, and approximately, and getting involved in the worship and music.
Well, first, Jim and I met in choir in 1983. And
church choir or school choir?
Church choir. Church choir.
Wow.
And he was in choir, and I came into choir, and I saw him, and I knew I was going to marry him.
Or it was probably like he saw you and he said, "Lights out."
I have no idea.
It.
You'll have to ask him that.
Yeah, but I just might.
But I just knew, and but the cool thing is that they were learning the Handel's Messiah, and I wasn't a believer when I joined the choir. I just wanted to sing, and I had only been in the country for about a year, and I just loved music, so I thought, why not? And
how old were you then?
I was 17.
And so your family immigrated from?
Mexico City.
Wow. And so you came here at 17 years old?
At 16.
16 years old.
Yeah.
Just yourself, your whole family as well?
My mom and sister, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so anyways, but that's when I met him, and I actually became a Christian through the Handel's Messiah. And so we've been singing together since before we got married.
Wow.
And so
I've always wondered this. He's like the silver fox. He's got the cool white hair on the worship team. When did his hair start to go grayish white?
Just kidding.
Well, my hair got lost after I got married, so we're right there in the same boat. So.
I don't know when his hair started turning gray. I don't know.
Well, that's cool. I'm jealous of anybody who has a head of hair. Any head of hair, it could be polka dot colored, and I would be jealous of it. Well, that's a really cool story, and I have many moments in high school and collegiate experiences with Handel's Messiah, and have been kind of on both sides of the platform, both sides of the podium on Handel's Messiah, and it's a remarkable work of music, isn't it? And to think that G.F. Handel, there's a couple of stories on that work. One is that the maidservant that was giving him meals, apparently he was so obsessed in the scriptures and in the prophecy in Isaiah, is so obsessed. And it's not just Christmas. You have full recitatives and arias, and it's really the entire story of the Messiah. There's an Easter portion, if you will, of Handel's Messiah. We usually just kind of hear the Christmas portion, and then it skips to the Hallelujah chorus. But there's another 45 minutes, if you will, of that cantata. But he wrote the entire cantata in something like under a month, 20-something days. And that the maidservant apparently would literally slip food underneath the door because he was so obsessed he would not even leave the room and was just writing constantly. So it's crazy.
Yeah,
well, hey, tell us a little bit about your music experience. Everyone knows that you sing wonderfully. You're a great worship leader. It's been my joy to serve with you. There was a time when you did this professionally, I believe, that you had some recordings and some albums that have been out, and you've led worship perhaps in other churches before. You told us about the Handel's Messiah experience, but kind of from there you got the bug. You started playing guitar, you started singing, and tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Well, I was going to a women's ministry. I was part of a women's ministry at another church, and they needed a worship leader. And I had learned guitar when I was like 12 or something, and I hated it because my sister was better than me, so I didn't want to. I didn't want to play it. So like, no, that's not for me. I'll just stick to singing. But someone, I guess, found out that they thought I played, but I didn't really play. And so they said, well, hey, you can just do the same 5 songs. We just need somebody to do it. So I thought, okay. So I did. I learned 3 chords that kind of went with all the 5 songs that I did. And that's how I started. And because I just wanted to worship the Lord. So that's how I started doing worship. And then the Lord just used me with another friend of mine for many years. We got to travel all over Europe and leading worship for retreats and little churches that didn't have a worship leader. We would just help them, and yeah, so I ended up actually coming to Kindred through that friend, and we did a special song for communion, and that's how I started coming to Kindred. So that was in 2010.
Wow. Patty, that's an encouraging thing just to hear that piece of the story. I'm reading a book about kind of great leaders, and there's this quote, one of the chapters is on Walt Disney, and there's kind of a quote that I think he's known for. I'm probably going to butcher the quote. I'm not going to quote it exactly, but it says something like, success begins when you stop thinking about it and you start doing something. And I think that that's a great encouragement, especially if you're a musician or a young worship leader and you see Patty and you look up to her as you should. Just start doing it. Take your 3 chords and your 5 songs and make something with that. Don't feel like you have to have 2 semesters of music theory in you in order to be used of God and to be able to be used for His purposes in leading in worship. And I think that's a great testimony to you as well. And you are that. You're that way in our church office. You're that way on our staff. You're a doer. You just, here it is. And again, you put up with me on a daily basis of having to do some of my crazy stuff. But there's so many more things you do than just be on support of me. And obviously your support with Pastor Philip and all that goes on in our front office. We thank our front office staff immensely. What we do as pastors, we couldn't do without you. We couldn't do without the front office staff.
Team effort. They're amazing. The girls are amazing.
You guys make it really roll and make it work, and so we're grateful for you. I just take a moment to just say thank you on behalf of our upstairs staff, that our downstairs staff. We're a team together, and you make that fun, and that's really, really cool. Tell us, Patty, what you kind of enjoy to do for fun as a hobby. I know you've introduced Della and I to some really cool restaurants. So we've been to Supatra's together, right? We've done the Monarch 9, which is one of our favorites, that French Vietnamese place. We were talking about Bodhi Leaf a couple weeks ago with one of our guests on Beyond Sunday. And I thought, Bodhi Leaf, we ought to work on a sponsorship or something. We've mentioned it 3 times in our podcast. And some people might be watching and they're not in the Orange County or Anaheim Hills area, and they're like, what are these restaurants you're talking about? But so we know we have a common love of having good food together. But what are some hobbies that you like to do? Some things that you and Jim like to do for fun, whatever. Yeah.
Well, when Jacob got diagnosed with MS, we started riding bikes for doing the MS Bay to Bay ride. And so it's like a 150-mile bike ride that you do over 2 days.
Wow.
And so we started doing that, so we really enjoyed bike riding. I also enjoy the, what is that? The bull riding. Yeah, I enjoy not doing it, but watching it.
I was gonna say we were gonna stop the presses now, and we were gonna cut to a video if that was actually.
No.
Wow.
No. Yeah, I really like it.
How cool!
Yeah.
Like the finals that happen in Las Vegas.
Yes, I love it.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay,
Yes.
My respect for you just even went up even higher.
Yeah, that's really fun, and I love wrestling with my dog.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing, can't
yeah,
be, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Depends on the size of your dog, of course.
Yeah, she's about 75 pounds, so it's like a little calf.
That's right. Now, does Jim watch the rodeo with you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How cool
is
that?
I get super excited. I really do.
So let's see, how many seconds is it that you have to stay on the bull for the ride to count? You have to stay on the bull for, 60. Is it 7? How many seconds?
I think it's 8 seconds.
Okay.
I don't know. I just.
Yeah.
I think it's 8.
Yeah. Well, Della, and I don't know if you know this about Della. Della, for a period of time, she grew up on a cattle ranch and on a farm, and they did a lot, from everything from harvesting wheat to, of course, corn, to a whole bunch of pigs. They had at one point, I think, 7,000 head of pig. Wow. She raised a bunch of turkeys by herself. That was one of her chores, gathering eggs every morning from the chickens.
Turkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's crazy. But she used to do some riding. She used to do, and she did barrels, and she never did rodeo work though, or I think her brothers did. But she did do barrel racing and all that with horses, and I love horses, but Della's actually really good at riding horses. I just try, and it's been years since
I
I've
really
been.
like the bull riding. Just watching
Wow.
them stay on there. It's crazy the stuff they do.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Super dangerous.
Super dangerous.
Yeah.
That's why I just watch.
Yeah, and I've often thought that watching the rodeo clown. Now that's a guy that nobody talks about, right? But he's got one of the most dangerous jobs.
Yes.
Because he doesn't have face gear, and he's not up 6 or 7 feet, and he's got to rely on his own intuition and his own 2 legs to get him out of trouble.
Yeah.
So how fun. All right, well, we need to watch bull riding then sometime. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but I'd watch it with you. So no, we actually did with Jacob as well, talked about his ride, and I know that the charity that you guys are part of, and it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. So I encourage you to look at it. Take just a minute and tell people, can they find it on Facebook?
Yes, they can find it on Facebook. It's the MS Society. And you can look up Team Jacobito, Jacobito, or however you want to say it.
Wow.
Jacobito.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you using street bikes? Is it partial mountain bike? Is it
you can use mountain bikes if you want. I mean,
that'd be a heck of a ride.
You do have to do Torrey Pine, so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you've got some.
It's usually road bikes.
Wow.
But you can use also the other type, the electric bikes now, I guess. Yeah.
Well, Patty, as we're kind of coming to a close here, this podcast, it seems to go so fast. In a brief couple of minutes, could you just, those that might be watching, especially as I've said, that look up to you, look up to Jim, a life well led, the gifts and talents that you have, Jim's immense gifts, both as a school teacher as well, and now retired school teacher. Could you capsulize what would maybe be some advice that you could give someone either in the music ministry that's considering jumping in and serving with us, or some that might even be in a different church that wants to get involved in music? What would be some advice that you might be able to give to someone who's just kind of coming through the ranks and maybe sort of started organically like you did, like 3 chords in the truth, and I'm just going to do this? Speak a little to that person of what would be maybe some of your advice.
I would say practice worship. You can't lead people in worship if you are not a worshiper yourself. It's a very high calling. It's a scary place to be because you want to give God all the glory, and it's important that you study worship, that you study instances in the Bible about worship, that you pray, that you read the Bible, that you practice your craft, so that when you are actually in a position of leading, then you're not worrying about everything that's happening on the stage. You know how that is. That you can just worship alongside with everyone else. It's really it's beautiful. It's a joy. It's a challenge. It's a gift. And that God puts you in a situation where you're entrusted with the hearts of people. I just think that's very humbling. So if you have the opportunity to serve in that area, just give it to the Lord and continue to look to Him, and don't take any glory or any credit.
That's great advice. And as Patty says, to capsulize that as well, to not be intimidated. Just jump in, start doing. There comes a time when we think, and then there comes a time when we just need to get doing.
Yeah, and God's the one that does the work.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as you know, Patty, we've had these kind of conversations. Worship leading, especially in a larger environment on main stage. Sometimes I feel like this strange conversation that goes on my mind on sometimes. And on one hand, I'm driving, and on the other hand, I'm directing traffic. And it's hard to be a driver and direct traffic at the same time. And sometimes I'm leading, but sometimes I'm following. And I think a good worship leader knows that dance and knows that you can get out so far in front of a congregation that you're no longer leading anymore. You're just by yourself and in your own moment. But yet, people need to see you engaging with that.
Exactly.
So all of that is super awesome advice. Well, hey, just one more question, and then we'll wrap up this week. It seems to always go so fast, these episodes. I think if we do this again, I'm going to increase maybe the time a little bit. But tell us, everybody talks about these cool mugs that we're getting, these Beyond Sunday mugs. Cameras get a good shot of that there. But everybody gets a mug that sits in the hot seat with an interview with me. But tell me, what's your favorite coffee or your favorite tea drink? Do you have one? We're going to make a list here.
Yes. I like the oat milk lattes with cinnamon. And someone said to add some vanilla in there. I think I'm going to do that next.
A tea drinker or coffee mostly?
Coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee. I'm half Colombian. It's all about the coffee.
Yeah, I love an Americano with like dry cinnamon on it too. But I've kind of gotten into the chai lattes a little bit lately. Lately. I'm getting into lattes lately.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, it's been an absolute joy having Patty with us for our episode of Beyond Sunday. I just want to encourage you to keep checking in every week, as we'll have a new guest with us every week. You could always find the Beyond Sunday podcast. If you just search YouTube and you find Kindred Church Anaheim Hills, you'll find us there on our own channel. Or you can download it through any app that you choose, any podcasting app that you choose. Until next week, thank you, Patty, for the joy to be able to talk with you and to hear your story, and we love you very much. And so thank you for watching this episode of Beyond Sunday. I'm your host, Tom Grassi, and God bless you, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining this episode of Beyond Sunday, brought to you by Kindred Church. For updates and new episodes, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Kindred Church Anaheim Hills, or join us on Facebook or on our website at www.kindredchurch.org.